The purpose of the wildlife camera was to capture everyday life in the Olympic Mountains of the Pacific Northwest. But what it recorded initially shocked the team of ecologists, and soon the entire world. Jason Clark, an ecologist from Seattle, was reviewing routine footage from tracking cameras placed in the park's most remote corners. His makeshift office on the outskirts of Port Angeles smelled of coffee and pine resin. The walls were covered in topographic maps. For the past 3 months, he and his small research team had been documenting wildlife in the least explored sections of the reserve. Rubbing his tired eyes, Jason muttered, "Another hour of watching squirrels gather nuts." A light drizzle fell outside the window. He was alone. Everyone had already left for the weekend. Sabrina was at a scientific conference, Paul had taken a day off, and Rebecca was at home battling a cold. His feelings about the job fluctuated daily. On one hand, working as a field ecologist gave him the chance to study one of the country's most beautiful landscapes. On the other, watching the same bears and deer for hours could be mind-numbingly dull. When he agreed to the project, Jason had hoped to find something unusual, maybe even a rare species thought to be extinct. But after 3 months of work, the most interesting thing he'd captured was a family of coyotes hunting rabbits. At least, that was the case until 7:42 a.m. on that rainy Tuesday. The video showed a narrow path between ancient cedars and firs. The camera was mounted about 5 meters up a tree trunk. Thick morning fog blended with the drizzle. This particular camera was in an especially remote area, at least 15 kilometers from the nearest trail and roughly 30 from any road. Then, suddenly, a figure appeared at the edge of the frame. Jason nearly fell out of his chair, straightening up and leaning closer to the monitor. It was a woman. She emerged from behind the trees, barely visible through the rain and mist. She wore something dark and fitted, maybe workout clothes, covered in dirt and stains. Her long, tangled hair clung to her face and shoulders. She moved strangely, slowly, her head bowed as if half asleep or severely weakened. Her shoes were in terrible condition, little more than remnants of what might have once been hiking boots. Jason's heart pounded. His throat went dry. He knew this area well. No official trails, no campsites, no shelters. Anyone who came here would need proper gear. This woman looked like she'd spent not days but months in these woods. "What is she doing out there?" he whispered, pressing closer to the screen. The woman lifted her head slightly as if hearing something distant, and slowly walked deeper into frame. For a moment, her face turned toward the camera, haggard, sunken, with hollow eyes and sharp cheekbones. A long scratch, dried with blood, ran down her cheek. Then she continued on, disappearing back into the trees. Jason rewound the footage and watched it again. On the third viewing he noticed something new, a bracelet or watch on her wrist. This wasn't an illusion, not a trick of light and shadow. This was a real person, somehow lost in one of the park's most isolated stretches. He tried to think logically. Could she be a missing hiker? But there had been no recent reports of lost backpackers in the area. And her condition suggested she'd survived far longer than just a few days in the wild. He couldn't keep this to himself. Jason saved the video file, took screenshots, and immediately forwarded everything to his supervisor, Dr. Sabrina Yamada. He also called the Park Ranger Service to report his discovery. The ranger on duty sounded skeptical. "You sure about those coordinates? You realize you're describing a spot nearly 20 miles from the nearest road?" "I'm well aware," Jason replied, frustration creeping into his voice. "That's why I'm calling. This woman needs help, now." Within hours, the video reached federal authorities, and thanks to the inevitable social media leak, the footage spread online within days. FBI analysts, forensic experts, missing persons investigators, and curious onlookers dissected every frame for clues. Headlines exploded: "Survivor of the Olympics, the missing woman, the forest detective's mystery." While the internet buzzed with wild speculation, experts offered rational theories. Park officials and forensic analysts confirmed the video was undeniably real. What Jason had captured wasn't a hoax. It was a woman, severely emaciated, wandering the wilderness. Authorities took it seriously. They combed through archives of unsolved disappearances in the area over the past few years. The list was longer than expected. Hikers vanishing from trails, locals going missing on day hikes, even a few unresolved cases of lost children. 3 days after the video's release, as search efforts peaked, a man named Michael Evans came forward. Jason was in a meeting with park rangers when the man, roughly 35 with a tired, sunken face and several days' stubble, burst into the room. He clutched a printed screenshot of the video. "Where is she?" His voice trembled. "That's my wife, Hannah Evans. She disappeared 3 years ago. Where did you find her?" The room fell silent before erupting into chaos. Michael showed photos of his missing wife, and despite her gaunt appearance and the changes in her face, the resemblance to the woman in the video was undeniable. The picture showed a young woman with dark hair and bright blue eyes, smiling at the camera, a stark contrast to the exhausted figure caught on the trail cam. "We were on a weekend hiking trip," Michael explained, his voice shaky. "Stopped at Hurricane Ridge Overlook. I stepped away to gather firewood, and when I came back, Hannah was gone. Only her backpack was left at the edge of the viewpoint. We searched for weeks, dogs, helicopters, volunteers. Nothing. Everyone assumed she'd fallen from the cliffs or gotten lost and couldn't survive. The case was closed after 6 months. But I knew. I always knew she was alive." Hurricane Ridge was about 20 miles from where the woman had been spotted on camera. An incredible distance for someone without gear, but not impossible, especially over 3 years. The real question was, how had she survived all this time? And why had she never tried to return to civilization? Search teams and resources doubled. This was no longer just a mysterious figure on video. This was Hannah Evans, a real person with a story, a husband who had never stopped looking for her. She was now a national focus. Jason couldn't shake the woman's image from his mind. Now that he knew her name, had seen her photos, and heard stories from her husband, she was more than just a mysterious figure on a screen. She was someone who needed to be found no matter what. He took leave and joined the official search teams. But their methods seemed ineffective. Too much noise, too wide an area. If Hannah had survived in these woods for 3 years, she'd likely learned to avoid people. On the 7th day of the search, Jason decided to go alone. Armed with topographic maps and survival gear, he hiked to the spot where the camera had recorded Hannah. From there, he planned to follow the direction she'd been heading. On the 2nd day of his solo search, as he pushed through nearly impassable rain-soaked underbrush, he noticed something strange. Ferns and bushes bent slightly, forming a faint, barely visible path. On one of the fronds was a dark spot. Jason touched it with his finger. Dried blood. His heart raced. This was the first real lead. Following the faint trail, he stumbled over hidden roots and rocks buried under fallen leaves as he pushed through thickets of brambles. Just as he began doubting whether he was seeing an actual path or just what he wanted to see, the forest suddenly opened up. He found himself at the edge of a small clearing surrounded by towering trees. At its center stood an old shack, likely once used by loggers or hunters. It didn't appear on modern maps. The roof was partially collapsed, the walls covered in moss and lichen. But beside the door was a neat stack of dry firewood, and a thin wisp of smoke rose from the chimney. Jason approached carefully, trying not to make noise. His hand hovered over the doorknob. He took a deep breath and knocked lightly. Silence. Then, movement inside. The faintest creak of floorboards. "Hannah?" he called softly. "Hannah Evans? I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help." More silence. Then slowly the door creaked open. The inside smelled of smoke, dampness, and something else. Earth, sweat, wild herbs. Sunlight filtered through cracks in the walls and holes in the roof, illuminating the sparse interior. A stone fireplace in the center, a crude table made of old planks, a few tin cans and small animal pelts used as bedding. And there, leaning against the far wall, stood Hannah. She looked like a creature from another world. Her once slender frame was now shockingly thin, her skin tanned and toughened from constant exposure. The bright blue eyes from Michael's photos had faded, now alert and distant. Her arms and legs were covered in scars and scratches, marks of 3 years of survival. She wore handmade clothes stitched from fabric scraps and animal hides. Around her neck hung a necklace, the only thing that seemed unchanged from her past life. "Hannah?" Jason repeated, staying by the door to avoid startling her. "My name is Jason Clark. I'm an ecologist working in the national park. We saw you on camera. Everyone's been looking for you." She didn't answer, but something shifted in her expression. Recognition? Understanding? "Your husband, Michael, he's here. In the park." Jason kept his voice gentle. "He never stopped searching for you. You're safe now. We can help you." At the mention of her husband's name, Hannah flinched, her eyes widening. She opened her mouth, but only a hoarse sound came out. She cleared her throat and tried again, her voice barely above a whisper. "Michael is alive?" "Yes," Jason answered softly. "And he never gave up on finding you." Moving slowly so as not to spook her, he pulled a water bottle from his backpack and held it out. After a moment's hesitation, Hannah stepped forward, took it, and drank carefully in small sips. Jason quietly retrieved his satellite phone and relayed the coordinates to the rescue team. A helicopter was dispatched immediately. As they waited, Jason tried to keep her talking. Slowly, Hannah began to share fragments of her story in short, broken sentences. She and Michael had been at the Overlook. She'd stepped away to take photos, then found herself slipping down a steep slope. The fall was long and she lost consciousness. When she woke, it was already dark. Disoriented, likely concussed, and possibly injured, she tried to find her way back but ended up deeper in the forest. "I called for help," she said, her voice fading. But no one came. Then the rain started, so heavy I couldn't find the path again. The first few weeks were the hardest, she explained: cold, hunger, fear. She built crude shelters, tried to make fire, ate berries and plants she recognized from hiking guides. "Then I found this shack," she said, glancing at the weathered walls. There were old tools, traps. "I learned to catch small animals, gather wild plants." She trailed off as if struggling to piece together her thoughts. "I lost track of time. Only noticed the seasons changing. Forgot words, forgot how to speak. Sometimes I thought this was all a dream. That my old life was the dream. That I'd always been here." Her story was cut short by the sound of the approaching helicopter. With the help of the rescue team and a medic, Jason managed to get her on board. As the helicopter lifted off, Hannah stared down at the shrinking shack and the endless forest surrounding it. Her home in prison for 3 years. A single tear rolled down her cheek, but her expression wasn't sad. It was peaceful. As if she was finally closing one chapter of her life and stepping into another. News of Hannah Evans' rescue, dubbed the Woman of the Olympic Forest by the media, spread worldwide like wildfire. She was reunited with Michael at a hospital in Port Angeles, where doctors immediately began treating her. Physically, she was severely malnourished, with numerous scars and old injuries that had never properly healed due to lack of medical care. But the real mystery was why she had never tried to return to civilization. Over 3 years, she could have attempted to find her way back, reach a trail, or at least leave some sign for the search teams that had combed the park in the first year after her disappearance. Yet she had done none of those things. When doctors and psychologists pressed her for answers in her clearer moments, Hannah only shook her head and said, "I don't know. The forest became my home." Was like, "I forgot another world existed." Psychiatrists diagnosed her with severe PTSD and dissociative amnesia, but even they admitted there were unexplained gaps in her story. The mystery of the woman in the woods remained unsolved, despite hundreds of interviews, medical tests, and psychological evaluations. And sometimes Jason thought, maybe some of nature's secrets were better left unexplored. The screen flickers to life with an older video file, grainy, timestamped 2 years before Jason's discovery. The same clearing. The same shack. But this Hannah is different. Her movements sharper, her eyes clearer despite the fresh bruises circling her wrists. She skins a rabbit with practiced efficiency when a twig snaps. The camera jostles as someone steps into frame, boots first, then the hem of a park ranger's jacket with a distinctive tear along the left sleeve. "You're late." The voice is muffled by the rain. Hannah doesn't look up, but her knife stills. "Had to go further out." The traps were empty. The ranger tosses a burlap sack at her feet. Something clinks inside. Canned food, Jason realizes with dawning horror. "Next month," the man says. "And don't forget the rules." Hannah's fingers twitch toward her throat, where her necklace, a rabbit's foot dark with age, rests against her collarbone. The video cuts abruptly to static. Jason's hands shake as he cross-references the footage with park employment records. 6 rangers assigned to Hurricane Ridge during Hannah's disappearance. One resigned abruptly 6 months ago, Daniel Shaw, whose personnel file shows a disciplinary report for unauthorized trail camera use. The photo matches the sleeve tear pixel for pixel. But it's the date stamp that chills him. The video was taken 3 weeks after Hannah was declared dead. The hospital hallway is too bright when Jason arrives, security footage from last night burning in his mind, a figure in scrubs lingering outside Hannah's door. The same uneven stride as the man in the video. Her room is empty. Only the necklace remains, coiled neatly on the pillow like a snake. Up close, the rabbit's foot isn't just stained, it's carved with tiny, precise notches. 57 marks. One for every month of her captivity. From the window, a trail of muddy footprints leads to the fire escape. At the edge of the roof, Hannah stands silhouetted against the storm, gripping something metallic in her right hand. Not a knife. A Park Service badge. Jason's radio crackles to life with dispatch reports. An abandoned ranger station is burning near Hurricane Ridge. The call came from a payphone. A woman's voice, calm and clear, gave the exact coordinates before the line went dead. The rain drums against the hospital roof as Hannah's bare feet leave damp prints on the concrete edge. She holds the badge up to the storm light, watching water bead along the engraved letters, Shaw. Behind her, the access door bursts open. Jason stumbles through, chest heaving. "You don't have to do this," he shouts over the wind. Hannah's laugh is a broken thing. "He always brought canned peaches. My favorite." Her thumb rubs the badge's jagged edge. "Funny what makes a cage." Jason takes a step closer. The security footage burns in his pocket. Shaw slipping into her room last night, syringe glinting. But the syringe isn't in Hannah's hand now. It's embedded in Shaw's thigh, found by nurses in a supply closet, his own fingerprints pressed into the plunger. The first police sirens wail in the distance. Hannah turns just slightly. The rabbit's foot necklace swings loose from her fist, the notches catching the light. 57. Then she lets it drop. Jason makes a grab for her as she falls backward. His fingers close around cold metal instead of warm skin. The badge bites into his palm as Hannah disappears into the storm. Later, when the FBI tears apart Shaw's cabin, they'll find the maps. Not just of Olympic National Park but 7 others. They'll find the little black book with its cryptic tallies. They'll even find the canned peaches, stacked neatly beside a collection of rabbit feet in a glass jar. But in that moment on the roof, there's only Jason, the badge, and the fading echo of Hannah's voice on the wind. Count them. Down in the parking lot, a news van's headlights catch the glint of something metallic in the gutter. A second badge, older, tarnished. The name etched on it isn't Shaw's. The sirens grow louder. Jason's fingers tremble as he picks up the second badge from the gutter. The engraved name makes his blood run cold. Leland Graves, Shaw's former supervisor, retired 5 years ago after a hunting accident. The dates on the badge overlap perfectly with the earliest disappearances. A drop of rain slides down the tarnished metal, catching on something strange, tiny scratches along the edge. Holding it to the dim light, Jason realizes they're not random. They're coordinates. The GPS leads Jason to an abandoned ranger outpost deep in the Quinault rainforest. The door hangs crooked, swollen shut from decades of damp. When he kicks it open, the smell hits him first, mildew and something sweetly rotten. Inside, the walls are papered with topographic maps. Red pins mark each disappearance. Black pins form a sinister pattern, every major trail camera location in the park. But it's the desk drawer that stops Jason's heart. Dozens of rabbit feet, each tagged with dates going back 20 years. Beneath them, a leather-bound ledger. The first entry reads, Subject 1 resisted. Had to release near Hurricane Ridge. Will not make same mistake with Subject 2. The last page shows Hannah's name. And beneath it, freshly inked, Subject 58 acquired. Delivery scheduled for winter solstice. A branch snaps outside. Jason spins, flashlight cutting through the gloom just in time to see.